This episode of the Backcountry podcast is brought to you by Majesty Skis America. Majesty is redefining skiing. It's a brand driven by skiers for skiers. They create innovative designs and they hand-build award-winning skis including the Havoc, a Backcountry magazine gear guide editor's choice in 2021. At Majesty, they consider versatility, lightness, performance, enhanced control, stability, and agility when designing every model. Whether it's touring, freeride, or all-mountain skis, Majesty has you covered. Check out their Skiing Redefined collection at majestyskisamerica.com. Welcome to the Backcountry Podcast. I'm Adam Howard.
For the last 15 years, backcountry equipment has been growing at a faster rate. It's still a smaller portion of sales, but it's consuming market share. And I think that this is just going to solidify backcountry's place.
In April 2020, as the ski industry hunkered down, many of us hoped that the COVID crisis, which shuttered ski areas, equipment factories, and textile supply chains worldwide, would be behind us as the ski season started this year. It was then that I asked 3 industry veterans to join me with their magic 8 balls to give us a state of affairs and, if possible, a forecast for the future. It turned out to be one of our most listened to episodes, and given the many requests from listeners for an industry update, I decided to invite them back to the studio, or their kitchens or spare bedrooms or whatever. Joining me today from his basement in Utah is Thor Verdonk, Alpine Technical Product Director for Lange, Rossignol, Dynastar, and Look, and one of the innovators behind Lange's XT3 AT boot. When we last spoke, all the ski boot factories in Italy were closed, and he was hoping to make up for lost line time over the summer. From his home in Shelburne, Vermont, we also welcome Jason Levinthal, founder of Line Skis and J Skis, a direct-to-consumer brand here in the Green Mountain State. In April, Jason was questioning his orders with his factory in Quebec. Finally, we have Flylo co-founder Dan Abrams calling in from Lake Tahoe. In the spring, Dan was watching shipping containers pile up in California and wondering if retailers on whom his customers depend would be open for the summer season. A lot has changed since April, and sadly, a lot hasn't. But at least we're skiing. Dan Abrams from Flylo, welcome to the Backcountry Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Howie.
I hear you got some snow last night.
We got almost too much snow, dare we say, but it's Tahoe, so we shovel and then we ski pow on fat skis.
Right on. Thor Verdonk from Rossi, Lange, Dynastar, etc. What's happening in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, Howie, thanks for having us on again. Well, we've had a little tough start, but we're starting to get some snow now, so we're getting rolling now. It's all gone north of us, so up by Jackson Way has been good, but we're finally starting to get a little bit rolling in here. We had a good storm last weekend, and we got another one that's kind of hitting us right now.
And you've got a pretty eerie snowpack, I bet.
It's been sketchy. I dug a pit just the other day, actually, out in Backcountry, and it's scary.
And Jason Levinthal from J Skis. What's your snowpack like in Shelburne, Vermont?
It's clear. You could see right through to the grass if you dig just a few inches down. It's the ice coast, but it's actually gotten a lot better in recent weeks. So it's just what you'd expect, you know? It's cold one day and, you know, sometimes it snows really good and sometimes it doesn't.
Well, the skiing's really good here, also in Vermont.
Yeah. It's good right now. Yeah. It just wasn't earlier like it normally is. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Slow start to the year. Speaking of slow starts, I've invited you guys all back again because this spring we recorded an episode in April, I believe, and each of you shared kind of your forecast for this remarkable 2020 we ended up having, and it seems like what's really changed. A new leadership in Washington, but COVID's still with us, and it's certainly impacting each of our businesses in a different way in the ski industry globally, for sure. Thor, I wanted to start with you. When we spoke in the spring, all the factories in Montebelluna where Lange boots are made were closed. You had said at the time you hoped they'd be reopened perhaps in 3 weeks. And, you know, you also mentioned that perhaps you'd be able to make up any lost volume over the summer. How did it roll out from when we talked in April?
Actually, you know, if we look back to that April time, it actually rolled out pretty much as planned. We were closed for a couple of weeks, and then we started getting some crews back in, particularly in production. They put some safety measures in, and the production line for boots is pretty spread out as it is. So that kind of worked out in terms of the social distancing. We didn't really lose much time in all reality. For sure at that time, the dealer confidence was a little sketchy with the unknowns. So some orders got cut back. So that kind of helped us kind of match what we had to finish up and what we didn't. So production wise, we're in all reality, we hit what we needed to do. The hard part was on the other side, and I'm sure the other guys maybe felt that as well, was the logistics, trying to get shipments to get to the right places. A lot of, ports were closed up or really slowed down. So logistics was probably the most difficult part.
So tell me, so you got the product, you're hoping to get it where it needs to go. Talk to me about the demand side. Obviously, France and Italy are closed. That's got to be a huge hit. North America's down volume-wise, probably because of restrictions state to state. How's it looking?
I would actually say it's a really strong year for North America and the US and Canada. I think as we talked last time, I think people with all this COVID, without doing, hockey or basketball or team sports, I think people are appreciating their time outside and putting a newfound respect for their time outside and their family time. So Nordic, for example, is crazy up. I mean, I think we were sold out of Nordic months ago already. So Nordic was unbelievable. Alpine was also really strong in the US, and it was really strong in Canada for quite a while. It's a little tougher now with Toronto kind of being shut down. So North America is kind of floating the business right now, to be honest. The confidence turned back up in France, I would say, kind of rolling into the fall. And then obviously with the latest shutdowns, it's ugly over there right now, I would say. It's challenging, obviously.
What's happening in Austria and Switzerland? They're kind of open, right?
I would say they're kind of open. From what I understand, in Austria, it's basically only Austrians. I believe, and don't quote me on this, but
we won't quote you.
Passport. Yeah, I guess I'm live, so I guess I'm quoted then, right? Fair enough. But I believe, from what I understand, you have to show a passport to ski in Austria to get the lift ticket. So I believe in Austria, you have to be Austrian to ski in Austria. Switzerland, I think, is open, but not everything is open, from what I understand. Obviously, France and Italy are two really big markets for us on the Rossignol and Dynastar and the Lange side, and those are shut down and looks like they're going to be shut down through the end of February.
What you're saying is there's still hope. There'll be a little bit at the end of the year in those two countries.
From a business standpoint of view, I think that'll be tough because you're most likely going to lose their February vacation, which is almost bigger than Christmas for them over there.
Well, it's nice to hear that North America's doing well. And we sit back, and here in Vermont, we're watching the ski areas. They have limits on how many people can come, and it's really difficult to get into the state if you want to play by the rules. But the demand is certainly there. People want to ski. I just struggle to put together how they can get the numbers to make it work. But here you are telling me that on the Alpine retail side or the hard goods side, sales are strong, which is great to hear. Obviously, Vermont's not Utah, but
I think particularly it's cross country, right? Which you can go do on a golf course, or you can do in a lot of places. So I think that's super positive. People want to get outside and they want to do their family activities. So,
Jason, when we spoke in the spring, one of the things that you mentioned was this whole dynamic was forcing you to rethink your, and I'm not going to get the business manufacturing terms right, so bear with me, but basically collaborating more with your manufacturer, your facility in Quebec, about, how you could be more agile, maybe not do the whole run in one smash, but do 60% of it, I think you said, and then 40% kind of on demand, if you will. What has happened there? Is that how it rolled out? Has it worked? What are you seeing?
Yeah. So in the past, we would just commit to the full volume and they build it, and that was the end of it. But this year I pulled the brakes like everyone and reduced it by 30%. And at that point, they had only built some of it. So most of the models I was able to do that. And then, I mean, you got to remember there was like a lot of months in there. So like your head was spinning on like, where is this actually going? Like every week was a huge difference. You know, you didn't know what was going to be completely shut down versus like, you know, maybe only the factories are open or only these things are open and these aren't. So the factory actually, because they had less orders from not only me, but other places, and this is up in Rimouski, Quebec, they ended up turning to building those face masks or those shields.
Oh, no kidding.
And I actually like pushed them a little bit to do that. I was like, guys, I don't know if I can support keeping all your employees by making skis. And I bet you your other brands are going to start pulling out a little bit too. And sure enough, that happened. So they all of a sudden went way down. They quickly turned over and started making these face shields, which enabled them to stay open because the government was saying, hey, you can't unless you're building this type of product. And that gave them, bought them like 3 weeks of keeping their employees going. And it also gave them another source of income that was, you know, subsidizing the reduced ski business. So then you get into July and I start hearing about my friends that have golf brands and bike brands and these, you know, outdoor brands that are blowing up. Sales are through the roof. They can't get enough product fast enough. I start questioning, geez, are we in that group? Because the difference I see is we have chairlifts that we need to be open for the most part to get the real volume. Like, sure, people will be touring a little bit. And even in a huge explosion in touring is still nothing compared to the volume of people that just get on a lift, right? So if the mountains don't open, now I'm in like July, I'm like, maybe we should plan on doing a reorder in the middle of the year. So I was able to reduce it and then add like 20% more for a November delivery. So I kind of started committing slowly to that. And then by the time I got into like August, I start selling in August and sales were like exactly the same as the previous year. Like, because I'm selling direct, I literally day per day, week over week can compare to the previous year. And it was identical. I was like, whoa, like this could end up being normal. I was still nervous as hell, but I was way more confident to commit, called the factory, hey, let's move these production up. How much more can we make? How much more can we make earlier? And we ended up the season the same as last year. We're up like 5 to 10%, you know, over last year's season. And it was all in my head of like thinking it could be anything from 0 to 50% to 70% of last year. And maybe in a miracle situation, we'd be even, but we are like dead even. It's unbelievable. And we also learned that it is possible to kind of build on demand a certain portion, a small portion of our total production. So going into next year, I'm actually purposely doing it that way, where like we're going to build 70 or 80% of it and just leave 20% for like a November, January delivery around there so that we can kind of adjust as we go. Not because it's going to be dangerous, but just why not? Why not be more flexible? So it's kind of like, you know, these, I feel a little bit like a learning process, like these restaurants that suddenly were able to push themselves to get online quicker. You know, like I was already e-commerce. I had a lot of things going for me, but this pushed me to rethink how I'm manufacturing and leaving a portion of that production to be a little more real time in the season, which is good.
Right. You made another move this year. When we spoke in the spring, you were still producing Forefront skis.
Yeah. So I sold that business too. I'm like one of those people, like the more chaos, the better. It's a bad thing. It's a bad habit, but yeah. So I was running Forefront and J, and then since I acquired Forefront 3 years ago, my goal was to, you know, fix up the brand, to get it to a point of profitability so it could stand on its own and then sell to a private individual or group of people that would then maintain its trajectory and continue its trajectory of growth, because it was just a lot on my plate. And I think COVID pushed me a little bit, but I was planning on doing it anyway. It happened to be 3 years and we hit just barely, you know, we just finally crossed that hump of, okay, we're sustainable, we're on our own financially. So I was already kind of in the mindset that I would sell it. And with COVID, I was like, if I don't, I'm entering double risk here going into the year. Like this is going to be mad, you know? So I spent months talking with hundreds of different potential buyers, and we worked, ended up selling it to a great group of people. From one person's from Europe, from Germany, another Colorado, another California, all entrepreneurial younger people in their 30s that are, love skiing and have always wanted to be in the business. And it was a win-win for both of us. So it was just, for me, it was always about what's best for the brand, because the brand was best for the sport. Like I wanted Forefront to exist for the long term, for the good of the sport. So there's enough variety of brands out there to bring, good flavor. And so, so I ended up selling that business in the midst of all this, which again, just proves that like, even in crazy times like this, there's just opportunity. I think it was a great opportunity for the buyer. It was a great opportunity for me. And now I'm just focused more on less things, just focusing on the J brand, which is good too.
Right on. Well, congratulations on that.
Thanks. I might have been the first ski company sold not because we were going out of business. I want to point that out. It wasn't a dire situation. Like I would have been fine carrying it forward, but it had always been part of my kind of mission and trajectory, but it just happened to fall in during those times. And I think it worked out great, because of that too.
Well, speaking of young entrepreneurs in their early 30s, Dan.
You mean your early 40s?
Come on. You should have rolled with it. Tell us about your year. When we spoke in the spring, you were, it seemed like there were a lot of unknowns. Maybe you were a little further over the hump than the rest of the ski industry because your lead times are so long. Tell me about how it rolled out with your summer products and then ski. How's it looking for you?
Well, the summer line for Flylo is focused around mountain biking. And initially everybody was freaking out and people started canceling orders, and probably 60 or 70% of our preseason orders for wholesale were canceled right around that time. And the stores were doing what they had to do. We had some accounts that just closed their doors. We had a really large account that tied up all their inventory in stores and had to close their whole chain. And so they didn't have access to over 80% of their inventory. And, things were kind of dire. We looked at reducing our inventory for fall and found that if we reduce the inventory for fall, it was going to cost the same amount. So we just had to bite it and build it all and bring it in. And then outdoor sports started to go off, and this idea of the K recovery, put all of our brands on the, on the right side of it. And we started looking at scenarios of being down 50%, like Jason's saying, and then down 20%. We were we told our group of important people that we were aiming for 20 down, but secretly we were thinking we could be 10 down, and we were going to be happy with that. And then mountain bike sales just started going crazy. And then our website just started going crazy, and Amazon and all the large fulfillment places couldn't fulfill things. And we just started becoming a direct to consumer business. And I think that I'm always very careful, and I still fancy us a wholesale led business, but finding a balance and looking at, the brands that have come before Flylo and who's the most successful. If we can maybe look at Patagonia and their mix of being, somewhere in the 50-50 range of wholesale to direct to consumer, you all of a sudden become the master of your fate. I can get bank loans with preseason sales, and I can have enough, income to reinvest in the business that I don't have to go out and raise money every year, sell equity, get more debt, and this and that. So we started to see this shift in our company happen. So we wound up having some stores for spring come on, buy a lot of their inventory that they had canceled. They chased inventory. We sold a great, this shift and focus on mountain biking was a really great shift for us, and we sold that stuff. And we had planned on a normal year, but every year there's always some sort of delay. There's hurricanes that hit countries, and tsunamis hit countries and cause nuclear power plants to falter, and you lose zippers, you get strikes, this and that. So we had planned for early shipments, and for the most part, they came in. And then the shipping delays started. And that logistical issue that was happening, basically the ports in California couldn't get the containers off the boats. And so you had 4 weeks worth of huge container ships sitting off the coast of Long Beach, just waiting to get the containers off the boat. Then if you want to get the container off the boat, they say you need to prioritize it. So you have to spend some more money. But since everybody spent the money, no one was prioritized. And it went from this, like, first it was a bust, coronavirus hits, and everybody's scared. They canceled their orders. Then it's a boom. Everybody's selling everything in the outdoor industry. And so then the knee-jerk reaction is order more for the fourth quarter. And the ports are still backed up to ship our stuff from other parts of the world is still like a 3 to 6 week delay over what we're used to. And that's enough to get companies to have to air freight inventory in, and then it just makes it really difficult. So all different sorts of challenges. We go into fall, and a lot of the ski hill, the stores that are at the base of ski hills, they canceled their orders. They don't know if they're going to be open. They don't know if the ski hills are going to be open or all. Are larger. So that's kind of larger dealers. And so those guys kind of suffered, it seemed like. Then we have independent retailers, and a lot of them were just thriving. Our local store in Tahoe City, California, Alpenglow Sports, up 600%. And the same thing goes with, Tahoe Sports Hub and Granite Chief, like all these great ski shops in the Tahoe area are thriving because they were able to adapt. They were able to limit the amount of people coming in. And, I hate going and getting my boots worked on and kind of jockeying around for position, trying to get a boot fitter to work with me. So when, if coronavirus affected boot fitting and that now you make an appointment and when you can get your boots worked on, it's fantastic. Not to mention the plastic shields, that doesn't bother me. And I feel like someone touching my feet should be wearing a mask and gloves. So it's all, so we saw the independent retailers thrive. Our website thrived, but on 3-layer technical gear, not on insulated garments that were kind of more resort specific. So although we're seeing record numbers, or it seems like the lift lines are really long at the ski hills, those stores aren't necessarily coming back online right now. And we wound up finishing the year up 13%, which was a miracle. Again, once we started tracking to even, we were high-fiving. And then once it went up, we were counting the numbers twice. And on the downside of it, we have a good amount of closeout inventory of insulated shells. So there's going to be a lot of good deals on 2-layer insulated garments for the next year or so as the industry moves through it. The 3-layer technical stuff that could go in the backcountry or inbounds, out of bounds, that stuff's gone. Baker bibs sales were up 30-40%, and it's insane.
How many colors of the Baker bibs did you have?
We did 5 colors, and we sold out of black. Sold out of 2,500 units of black.
There's the real boss right there.
I know. You called it, Jason. You did call it. Always buy black. Oh, yeah.
Love it.
Who's that with you there?
This is Otis Abrams, my 4-year-old.
Hey,
He's
Otis.
skied 36 days so far this season.
Ooh, that's more than
his
me.
His sister skied 39.
Sweet.
Yep.
Somebody's got their priorities straight.
Absolutely.
Thor, I guess it was in August, there was a big ski factory fire in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Did you guys, how did that affect you? I know they were, I don't know the whole story. They made skis, Nordic, I think, in lower end skis for a lot of brands. What can you tell us about that, and how did that impact Rossi?
Well, yeah, I think primarily it's some junior skis out of that factory and some lower end skis, and then quite a bit of Nordic. We have some production with that factory, from what I understand. I'm not the true expert on cross country, so I'm going from what I've heard within the company. But we had some production with them, but I guess most of our stuff was already relatively done when that happened. So it didn't affect us a ton. I think it affected us a little bit, but we'd also, with our other ski factories, also our ski factory in Spain, we do a lot of Nordic. So we were able to transition relatively quickly to get production going there. I think they had some plans to do that originally anyway. So kind of everything kind of worked out okay. We were affected a little bit, but I don't think drastically.
Can the industry pick up that capacity from that one factory if they spread it around, or is that a huge loss going forward?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure it's a huge loss. It was a pretty high volume production facility from what I understand. I would say that probably they can absorb it somewhere. I think with COVID right now, with maybe reduced staff, it's probably a little more difficult. So if you kind of put that tragedy on top of the pandemic, I'm sure there's some challenges within the next, within the months after it happened and now. But I think most brands will probably recover. I mean, they can't recover what they're missing directly after, obviously, but I think with a long-term plan, most guys should be able to recoup that. I would think.
So I shudder to ask you. I mean, Dan and Jason have shared some of their success stories from the year. I'm guessing it's not the same. The response won't be the same from out of most manufacturers based out of Europe.
I mean, I think all the manufacturers are having good success in North America, and as I said earlier, that's probably floating the business this winter. Europe is a major challenge. I mean, shops are closed, ski resorts are closed. Touring is definitely, you probably can't find any touring gear over there right now. Although I guess it's still in some places you're not supposed to be out touring.
Right.
So how much people follow that, I'm not sure. But I mean, the hard part I think for Europe is that when you lose that season, the shops aren't open as they have inventory. So they're open to buy for next year is going to be a challenge, of course.
What is it looking like for R&D for Rossignol, Lange, Dynastar?
We still continue with R&D. It's times like this is where you can't really take the foot off the gas pedal on R&D, in my opinion. You got to make some smart decisions and carry over certain products that you may not have carried over from one year to the next to help protect your dealer, since we're dealer centric business. So you got to base your inventory, what the dealers have for inventory, and there's for sure some carryover there, but it's still on R&D. We got to keep moving forward on that. So we've kept that on, and a few of the lockdowns that have happened in Europe, we've made sure that the R&D staff still gets their time in there so that they haven't been the ones kind of cut in terms of hours and that kind of thing. It's been a challenge without the guys being able to ski. I mean, behind the scenes in a lot of those countries, the race clubs are actually still training and the national teams are training. And, with our relationships with the national teams, being part of the French pool and whatnot, we're able to get our R&D guys up on the hill when the national team is training so that they can get some testing in. It hasn't been as frequent as it has been. On the boot side, we use FedEx a lot. So we're using, our team here. We're sending boots, from Italy to here, and we get out on snow and then give the feedback. So we've been managing. Again, it's a little bit challenging, but still moving forward.
So there's some austerity happening still in Europe in the ski industry, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. So let's talk, Jason, about next year. I mean, you've shed yourself of a lot of obligations. You're able to ski a lot this winter. Sounds like you're getting out. What are you testing? What are you thinking about for next year? What am I going to see at our test, which is going to be largely a remote affair this year?
I'm thinking big, honestly. Like this year has given me a lot of confidence. I'm just a person, like I'm not a giant corporation with multiple brands and, global in any respect. I'm counting on my customers. I know each one of those customers. I sell exclusively direct to them online. We communicate, we have 100,000 emails, in our email list that we communicate with them. We're on live chat and everything. And we're hearing from them, 7 days a week, my customer service is talking to them by chat, email, phone. we're hearing a lot of enthusiasm from customers, a ton. A lot of people were asking, what ski should I get? And we tell them and they go, sweet, I'm going to be planning on getting that next year. Or we'll reach out to them, hey, are you planning on buying skis? You haven't ordered yet. And they'll say, well, because of COVID, because I wasn't sure about the mountains, because I wasn't sure about my job or the financial situation or the snow. I'm holding off, but I'm definitely looking forward to next winter buying a new pair. So I've just, through that, thousands of consumer feedback, even though we're equal or up in sales, I'm feeling like there's a buildup of excitement for getting back to some form of normality. And there's also the reason of I'm not going on that trip. I mean, a lot of skiers out there are trip based. Like they don't just drive 20 minutes to the mountain like we do. They have to get on a plane or they have to make a 4-day reservation somewhere in a different state, 2 states away, 3 states away. All of that's on hold for the most part, for the large volume. So I'm actually thinking all that pent up demand, I'm planning on growing quite a bit next year. Like I'm building skis or I'm committing. I'm not ordering every single SKU, but like I said, I'm ordering 80% up front for a bigger year, like a 30% growth year. And it's not, I think also we're just in the right spot at the right time. We've been selling direct to consumer for 7 years. We've got a really efficient process for that. And, there's other things playing into it, just the momentum of the brand as a whole. And we're developing new products. Like Thor said, I believe exactly that. Like you can't put the brakes on product development. And yeah, nothing's easy, but the fact that we all made it through this year, I mean, we at least know that we can do this, and sure, if the mountain shut down, we'd be screwed, like I was in the same position, thinking, oh, well, as Dan, like, shit, if we're down 20%, we're freaking heroes, like it started with like, we might be down 30% and be like surviving. And then it was like, we might be down 10% and holy cow, I'm going to give everybody a bonus just for like being down 10%, but in the end, we got through it. And it's a good sign. I also am a little concerned about, is this like rollerblading where once everyone has a product in their closet, it sits in the closet? Like how many people are buying touring gear right now or touring oriented product that were really pushed by the fact they didn't want to have to not ski if the mountain's closed? They went touring and they're like, all right, that's kind of tiring, kind of exhausting. And I just watched a bunch of people go over me on a chair. I'll do this if I have to, but otherwise, nah, So I think there's a lot of sales of hybrid products, like you can tour on it, you can downhill tour on it. And that's kind of where my brand fits, is like, yeah, this is a lighter ski, but it's not so light that it's a piece of crap going down the hill. It's not only for the up. I think this big boom, you can't count on this staying. That's for sure in those categories. So I'm developing still skis that are heavy. They have some metal in it. They're charging. They're for taking the chairlift, as well as, some lighter weight skis, but not so light that it's only good for touring. The bindings I carry are kind of hybrid bindings as well when it comes to the touring world, like the Marker Duke, for example, it was like perfect for my customers anyway. I think a G3 out there or someone else is going to sell a lot more touring specific, but you're going to have a lot of people with touring gear in their closet for a lot of years to come here. So you got to be careful not to overdo it in the next couple of years.
I don't know. I think it's going to stick. I think it's going to stick.
Well, it depends who you're talking about.
You got to believe, man. Come on.
I mean, you could ask Thor. I mean, he sells to everyone that skis. I don't. I sell a few thousand, 4,000 pair a year. He's selling hundreds of thousands. He'll tell you that most people that ski are not what you would consider a hardcore skier. Like it snowed outside, so like, cool, let's go skiing. But that's most people, actually, I think. Is that true, Tor, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the main chunk of people are, resort based, right? Gravity skiers, as I like to call them. But I mean, I think we are seeing, if I think about Nordic or I think about touring, I mean, I think if anything, this has put a little bit of a spotlight on it and gives you an option, and it's given an introduction to some people touring's a little more difficult because, there's some barriers to entry. Where do I go? Where do I park? How do I do this? How do I do it safely? It's kind of a thing that someone almost has to show you a little bit the way. But I think with the avid skiers, maybe taking along friends a little bit more, I think there'll be a little more stickiness to touring. I don't think it's going to take over the bulk of the market, the trunk of the tree, so to speak, as you said, Jason.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people are like, I think that, yeah, that sounds cool. It makes complete sense in this environment. As soon as you go back in time to what it was, don't forget, these are people that would rather spend the $900 they had to invest in the new boot, the new binding, the new ski, into going out to Colorado for the week. They weren't able to go. So they have that disposable income. So why not add a different category to your quiver? Why not give it a try? It's justified. I'm just saying, like, there's other things. They're going to spend their money on beer. They're going to be doing the things they used to do that used to take the time. So they didn't have time to, spend 3 hours to take 2 runs. You know what I mean? But there will be a portion of it, like he's saying, that gave it a try and loved it, fell in love with it, and just like any sport, you're going to have fall off. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I think that, like the amount of vitamin D that people are getting from not being able to go to the gym, and the amount of people that are switching over to exercising outside, the boom and bikes, like, yeah, when the gyms open up again, a lot of people are going to go back into the gym, but the bike business, the outdoor sports industry is going to, have grown substantially. And so when I look at backcountry ski equipment, and since I've been doing this business for 15 years, I mean, back then, I swear people were saying telemark equipment is the darling. It's growing at 20%. And then quickly it shifted over to, just backcountry equipment. And so for the last 15 years, backcountry equipment has been growing at a faster rate. It's still a smaller portion of sales, but it's consuming market share. And I think that this is just going to solidify backcountry's place. And 5 years ago, we were talking about aspirational backcountry skiers, and why would people wear a touring boot going skiing? And I think, to your point, Jason, not everybody needs a 130 flex, even though Tour sells it, and a 140 flex, which looks amazing. And it's a touring boot with pins. It has a rubber sole. It's easier to walk through the parking lot to get to the lift. It's lighter when you're walking to get to the lift. It skis as good for most people. So in some respect, when we build clothing too, if you build something for the backcountry free ride skier, the Hoji, you're just building the best gear there is. And so if you want to simplify things and make stuff that's a one-trick pony, that could be, that's obviously always going to be the bulk. That's going to be people that are getting into the sport. But I think that, backcountry equipment sales are going to continue to grow, and having the Slacker, which I was on your site last night, maybe just, right. I knew we were going to have this conversation, checking out the Slacker and that idea. I mean, that totally speaks to me. And you bring up the Marker Duke. Like, when I was trying to get Flylo gear into ski shops, they'd be like, why should I carry this? And I'd be like, do you have the Duke on the wall? Yes, you do. And so we were able to go into mountaineering stores and into Alpine stores and cross over. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I think a lot more people are going to keep going out. And I've seen so many guides in Tahoe that are now booked for AVI courses, just like tons of people taking AVI courses. But also, what I would like to see is for people just to know, hire a guide, treat it like you're in France or you're in Europe. There are American guides that will take you in the backcountry for that 1 day or 2 days a year, and it's worth going.
I actually got that Lange boot tour, that X whatever with the pins in the front, even though I haven't even gone touring yet because the lifts are open. Every time I go, I was like, I'll just take the lift. But what you're saying is like, it's easier to walk in the parking lot. It's easier to carry all my kids' gear. You know what I mean? You put it in walk mode. And then it's like, if I go on a trip, which this year it's not the case, but like in the future, I'm going to be back with riders out west and I'll be ready to go in the same damn boot. Like, you don't have to bring 2 boots. You don't have to bring 2 bindings. Like, I think that's the real future of that whole category, is the versatility and the fact that some of that stuff works better for not even that, like you're saying, just
we sell this
lighter's lighter, right? Why wouldn't you want that?
We use event air permeable membranes, and we're like, yeah, this is hardcore. This is for the guides that are out in the snow for 10 hours a day. But the subtext is, if you're a dad like me trying to get your kids dressed in the lodge, you're sweating before you even get outside. So if you can have a fantastic fabric that will allow you to be less clammy and sweat less, like you too deserve what the guides in Alaska need.
Yeah.
And I just have to add that I don't buy ski boots I can't drive my car in. I'm 10 minutes from the mountain, so it's a little different for me, but
you're cross country skiing.
I've done my share of that for sure. No, that new XT3 is a sweet boot. And Dan, one of the things you missed in your tick list is these walk to ride bindings. They're legit. They ski great, and you can snap one of those XT3s in there, or Mindbenders or whatever, and man, they ski great. So Dan, what are you seeing for, you had a good year this year. You're not going to be ordering as many puffies. You're going to be ordering more technical garments. Is it just that simple, or what's 21, 22 looking like for you, and how's sourcing and all that stuff in Asia? How's that all feeling?
2019, we saw a slowing of wholesale sales. 2019 was not great. So fall 20 before coronavirus, and from the wholesale side of things, was maybe flat to a little down. And then obviously it went down from there. And I think what we're seeing is a culling of the herd, and that the independent retailers they're ordering way up for fall 21 and winter 22. So I'm with Jason. We're not swinging for the fence because we're an independent little brand. And so I would be happy with 25, 30%, as opposed to, buying way too much inventory and growing 80%. We're never looking for that. So I actually think, 21, 22 is going to be a good year. And I think that, if we're open right now in the heat of the pandemic, and that, we're not hearing stories of ski areas, knock on wood, we don't hear of super spreader events at ski areas. We do hear that they're losing money hand over fist because they can't open their lodges and sell beers and expensive burgers, which is too bad. But if they're open now, we're going to be open next year, and people are going to be able to go travel, test out that, that crossover inbounds, out of bounds kit. And so, and then, we're also seeing the rebound of those stores that, those resort area stores that weren't able to open this year or didn't buy more inventory. Those guys are coming back online. So I don't think it's going to go gangbusters, but I think it's going to be a strong year.
Tor, what are you thinking?
I think it's going to be a strong year as well next year. To all the points that Dan made, right? I think people have a newfound respect for their free time and their outdoor time. I think they're finding that again. And I think that'll carry over, even though it may have been forced a little bit this year with gyms being closed and so on and so forth. But I think particularly in North America, it's going to be a good year. I think Europe will also, I think people will be ready to get out there and get skiing because we're able to missed it completely this year, potentially in that sense. The product flow is going to be a little interesting to watch, I think, next year to see how we move out what the dealers had and couldn't sell and still move in some new stuff. So that's still to be seen a little bit, but I'm optimistic, as Dan is for next season.
Everyone has a short memory, though. Remember that. When things are good, you think it's going to be great. And then when things are bad, you think it's going to be horrible. And it's just that endless roller coaster. But the fact is, skiing hasn't grown in, I don't know how many decades. It's kind of like golf. And golf just grew for the first time in 20 years. And you know what? We're experiencing the growth too. So this is the time to get some market share if you're small. I think for a smaller brand, there's an opportunity. But at the end of the day, I think the big overall number, if you take the average of the next 5 years of participation, it's not going to grow. I just have a lot of trouble believing that when it goes back to some form of normality, because people just have other priorities. They want to go for the trip for the wedding. They have other things they want to spend money on. We're just lucky right now. We might get 24 months of this opportunity, maybe a little more than that, to leverage the forced focus on, spending any money you have on fewer things. That's what we're benefiting from. We're not really, I don't believe there's a true, in reality, there's literally more people are going to be skiing if you fast forward 5 years from now. Like, it wasn't that way before. There's no reason it's going to be that way now, unless literally COVID stays and you can't do all those other things.
There is an argument that, now that we, after the Black Lives Matter movement has, opened a lot more people's eyes and has forced a lot of people's hands to, invest or consciously be involved in diversity and expanding, the outdoor sports industry, you're starting to see, more diversity in advertising and marketing. And maybe that, maybe we could grow the total number of skiers a bit. I don't think it's going to be drastic. And I think you're totally right. We have 24 months to, secure our businesses and get ready for the next kick to the gut. But there is a chance maybe we could, start seeing more, more diversity, more, different demographics come up and get outside because they don't want to go back to the gym. I mean, I don't want to go to the gym.
But you got so much digital to compete with, man. I mean, you have a kid and give them a few years and you're going to be shocked. It's just so hard to compete. No matter, it's just the reality of the world, right? That's why we've been where we are until COVID hit.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you have it, a reason for optimism in skiing. Thank each of you for joining me today. Next time, join me with avalanche forecaster Drew Hardesty for some sage wisdom on a lifetime in the pits. Today's podcast was brought to you by Majesty, home of skiing redefined in North America. Check out more at majestyskisamerica.com. The Backcountry podcast is produced by Backcountry Magazine, an imprint of Height of Land Publications in Jeffersonville, Vermont. Lucy Higgins is our editor-in-chief. Our intro music was composed by Alex Paul. Bob Rusnock of Bluestream Voice and Imaging engineered this episode. Additional thanks to Tyler Cohen, Betsy Monero, Mike Lorenz, Robin Earl, Paul Davis, Justin Ryer, Michelle Peoples, Holly Howard, Karen Heward, and John Costello. At Backcountry Magazine, our small staff works hard to bring you stories that are thoughtfully edited, beautifully produced, and thoroughly fact-checked. Please consider supporting our independent journalism with a subscription to the magazine. You can subscribe or check out other swag at our website, backcountrymagazine.com. Use promo code PODCAST for 10% off your entire order. I'm Adam Howard. Until next time, I'll see you in the hills. Thanks for listening.